I do that one. Yes, thank you. All right. Hello, everybody. From both sides. Yes, and wave back, that's polite too. My name's Simeon Griggs, and before I get started, I just need to indulge my ego for just a few moments, and then I'll get on to giving the conference talk. You see, I don't get to do many of these conference talks, and it's always been a dream of mine to be one of these conference talk type people. You know the ones you see on LinkedIn, and they got the profile photos, and it says in their bio they're thought leader, or one of these people. You know, I've always dreamed that's going to be me one day. And Chelsea mentioned about TED Talk speakers, and that's my career goal. I'm not going to hide it. All right, so I want to be one of these people at some point, and so this is my big opportunity today to make sure I've got a new profile photo to go straight on LinkedIn after this. And so I'm going to finish today with 2 goals. I've got 29 minutes and 41 seconds left to get 2 goals achieved here. 1, I'm going to talk about components, and 2, I'm going to make sure I leave with a great new profile photo. So I can see that the photographer's there getting the thumbs up, so we're ready to go. Just need to get my topic on screen here, and maybe this one. Perfect, we got that? Thank you. All right, let's get onto it. My talk today is prioritise content over components. The more spicy version of this content title is called "The Components Are Considered Harmful for Content." I just want to get a read though on everybody in the room, because one of the other speakers saw my slides earlier and they're like, "Oh, you're showing code." And I last gave this talk at a developer conference, and I don't know how many, are there any developers here? Yes, there's a few. Excellent. That's all right. I'll blame you guys, everybody else. Who's a content creator for their organization? Anybody makes content? Yes, you work in the CMS every day. Designers, we're getting designers here. All right, what on earth do any of the rest of you do? I hope this is relevant in some way. All right, anyway, we'll work that out. I'm from Sanity.io. This is our homepage. Go and check it out later. I'm not here necessarily to sell Sanity to you today. Anne is, though, so come and say hello during the break. It's great to see the industry moving towards composable, and now they've got that like fancy word that's slapped on everything. And sort of reading the description of what Composable's about, it's kind of nice to think, well, that's what we were already doing, and sort of see that now it's got this fancy name everyone's using. We were founded on the idea that the monolith was problematic, and that headless implementations, for the most part, were just repeating the mistakes of the monolith once again. So we've always believed in completely separating content as data away from presentation, and that's largely what today's topic's going to be about. So I'm going to be talking mostly through the lens of content editable websites, but you can use Sanity for literally anything else that you would like. I've noticed I'm talking very quickly, and I don't think I've taken a breath yet. If anybody needs me to slow down, just like raise your hand as well, and I'll try and do that for you. So just quickly, let's set the stage. A brief history of editable content. Did anybody use Word version 1? Version 1? I didn't. It predates me. It's 1983. We were using Word version 1. But even looking at this UI, this is largely the sort of UI that you're still working with today when you're creating content. You've got buttons here for bold and italic and left align, right align. And so we've been creating content and worrying about presentation in the same way since the very beginning of these rich text editors. And so as the platforms have evolved, we've continued down this way. People who author content on computers expect to be able to control its presentation at the same time. And I get that. Go to Aldus PageMaker, one of the first desktop publishing applications. I never used this. I cut my teeth on Quark Express 3.1. Did anybody else use that? Any Quark Express fans? Yeah? All right. I first used this 10 years after it was released at my first job. It makes me wonder if you hired a junior developer now and gave them 10-year-old software, what they'd do. They'd probably turn their nose up at you. But again, we're dragging things into position. We've got clip art here. We're selecting colors. We're in control of the presentation as well as authoring the content. So desktop publishing has always been concerned about what the content looks like. And so as we move to the web, here's like one of the very early versions of WordPress. And we sort of repeated that same thing. We want controls here to determine what the content's going to look like as we author it. WordPress evolved to this. This is sort of some of the first website design work I remember ever doing was in this dashboard, where here again you were authoring content, authoring blog posts. You didn't have many different post types, but you were still creating content and determining what it looked like at the same time. And this has just gone all the way absolutely crazy now with the block editor, and we're drag and dropping blocks into position. And there's other startups that are built on this whole idea. Webflow Webflow and this, where all you care about is the content you're authoring, what it looks like at a page, at a point in time, as the website has been designed right now. So the CMS-backed web is just like the desktop publishing era, is that we're concerned mostly with how content looks. And that's what I want to break the cycle of today. So in this next section, let's consider this question. I'm not sure if anybody's ever asked themselves this before, but what is the content model of this page? Now, when we're building a new website, we're probably mostly concerned about what it looks like. You know, the design stage is the fun stage. We're not really, nobody wants to sit around an Excel spreadsheet and work out a content model. We want to pick colors and, you know, drag and drop things around. So here's a website. You've probably built one like this before. You've at least used one like this before. And, you know, it's got a heading, a hero button. It's got a button here. It's got some rich text area here for content, and got a sidebar with some links. You know, you've built or seen or used websites like this before. And I know when I was building websites for a living, if I got asked what the content model of this page was, I'd say, a page? And that's kind of what it is. It's a page. And now that we're working with components predominantly, your developers and your designers, they love this. You know, Figma's all components, code's all components. And so, well, it's not just a page. I guess it's a header and a hero, and it's a content area and a sidebar. And you split this up into components. And we've completely lost the idea, or not even looked at, what is the text on that page? Let's look at this same thing again. What are we actually selling here, or what are we actually showing here? This is like a course learning platform or something. So if we look at the actual text on the screen here, it's made up of individual pieces of content which are related one to another. We've got lesson content. We've got a label on the button. We've got a presenter. That's a person's name. You know, and these are individual, disparate entities that need to be modeled individually. So if we break this down, when we've got a design focus versus when we've got a content focus, and hopefully the goal of today's talk here is to get us away from this. I know this is the fun part, picking the colors, picking the fonts, picking the images, and being concerned about what does it look like today. That's all I really care about. But if we can move towards a content focus, we can actually move a lot faster. We can actually experiment a lot faster as well. So if we've got our design focus brain on, we'd be thinking about that website. There's a lesson page template, a course page template, and a presenter page template. And we're talking about templates and components. If we move towards content focus, we have a lesson, a course, and presenter. We're talking about the same things, but we're talking about them as entities outside of the realm of that website. That lesson data, you might want to export that into a PDF or an application or audio or video, something like that. It could live in so many different applications, and that's been the whole promise of omnichannel. But how many times have we been sold omnichannel, or we've talked about omnichannel, and yet all we end up really building is the website? And that's kind of the mistake of headless, is just having two different individual applications that only live to serve a single point. So tell me if this process sounds familiar in the website creation process. Step one, rebuild the website. You've got a new redesign, a new rebuild. This is step one. What's step two? Anybody? Rebuild the CMS. And this is a cycle that continues to repeat. Maybe not so often. Okay, I was hoping for a more rebuild the CMS, but this tends to happen because we built a CMS to power that website as it looked like at that redesign process, and then we're like, oh, well, we're getting tired of those colors and fonts, so let's go back and let's rebuild the website, which means we have to come and rebuild the CMS again. And actually, if people at agency partners, I know you actually probably like that cycle to some degree, but we can escape that, and we can actually, again, iterate and experiment a lot faster if we can try and skip this cycle. So let's break that. In this next section, I want to talk about the difference between explicit curation versus content-driven. Big words, I know, I'll break these down. So what does it mean to explicitly curate content? Here's a sketch for the new website that we're building. And we've got a hero section, of course. We've put across the top of the page there. And then we've got 3 cards. And this is often like the layout of just about every other website. And often when we're thinking about this in terms of the way that I want this to be, we're going to explicitly curate this layout. That is, the top section's the hero because I put it there. I want to drag and drop the blocks. I want to put these things into position. That's the hero. Everyone's going to see that hero because that's what I think is the most important thing to show to everybody right now. That's explicitly curating the content, and that's the control. Again, people from the very beginning, from Word 1 all the way through to Webflow and block builders and all this sort of thing. I want to drag and drop these things into position. I want to determine what the web page looks like. I don't care about anybody's preferences, what they're interested in, where they are, any of those things. I'm designing the homepage, and that's what a lot of websites can be built around. So that's explicitly curating that page. But again, let's have this example of looking at the individual pieces of content. There's a summer promotion that's potentially going to last for an entire quarter. There's new arrivals that perhaps somebody who visits the website regularly would be better off served that content with the highest priority because they're more interested in what's new. We've got sales. Perhaps that's a more time-limited offer than this one at the top here, so it might be actually more relevant to a particular type of person. Maybe it's members only, so if I'm signed in, that should be the top one. Opening day in the latest location. If I'm near that new location, it might interest me more to see that in the top priority section. So if we consider the person visiting the website and not consider the person who's authoring content for the website, who gets to explicitly curate all of those bits and pieces, perhaps that same website design could be showing different content to different people in different places based on their own preferences and their own priority. It's sort of the key of personalization, but it's funny in certainly that experience how often we talk to people who want that personalization, but at the end of the day, they kind of more want to make the hero be the hero and put that there at the end. So content-driven designs this is the hero because it's the most relevant. It's the most relevant to that person visiting that web page at that point in time. So this is when we sort of get away from that design focus and move towards that content focus. Then we let the website take care of itself. There should be rules and logic and some amount of smarts in the website code itself. And that's the promise of using these more technically relevant and capable tools, is that the website's more adaptable to the person visiting rather than the author who creates that content, again, at a single point in time. Not everybody's going to get all the way to content-driven. Certainly when our whole website or our whole application or whatever front end that is completely rules and logic, it can be quite disorienting because you're like, what does the website look like again, to who's visiting at what point in time? It can be difficult to preview these things. The idea of this talk today is to try and just move us away, like any notch on that timeline, away from explicit curation. If we can just get away from the idea that I have to be in control of every component at every moment in time, and instead let relevance, let the content itself drive the conversation and help drive conversion, certainly, and try and get as close to content-driven as we can possibly get. And just a little bit less control for our own selves when we're authoring content. Now, the truth of it is, even if we move to this whole rules-based, priority-based, preference-based, content-based way of doing layouts, at some point somebody is going to say, but I want to add an image carousel and an auto-playing video. And that's always going to happen. Somebody's going to come through with that request, and if it comes from high enough, it's sort of one of those things you can't knock back. And so the goal of this talk too is that none of us should go back and slap the hand of the person that says, no, you can't have that, because that's not really the goal either. Again, it's that sliding scale. How much more rules and logic can we apply into the front ends that we put in front of people to make sure that those things are content-driven experiences rather than that idea of explicit curation. I'm talking way too quickly. So let's build a website together. Right now. I know very few of you are developers or designers. That's okay. We'll do this group experiment. Maybe you'll have some more sympathy for people on your team at the end of it. Here's a website. You've seen websites like this. Sorry, I keep touching the screen too. We've got an event company we're running all of a sudden, all right? And we've done the fun part first, because content models are boring, right? Spreadsheets are boring. So let's do the fun part. We've picked these bright colors, and we're going to have a big picture here, and a headline, a hero, and all this sort of thing. And so we've done the fun part. We've done the design revisions. We've made the logo bigger, and then we hand this off to the developers. And so the first thing a developer who's mostly concerned with what it looks like and going home on time is going to split this into components. And components are great because they're reusable, right? So it makes sense. Like, components aren't bad either. I don't want to make that part of this talk either, that components are bad. Components are good, but it's what we put in them. We'll get into that in a minute. So we made a hero component because we're going to reuse that in a lot of places. We're going to reuse this banner component. It's got like a caption here, and we're going to reuse this call to action a lot. So that's a generic component. And then we've got like a text label here. So again, we've made these components because it makes sense to our application to think in this sort of way. And so here's what our code looks like. If we've written this in React, here's our components, and this describes our layout. We've got this page layout here. We've got our 4 components. And this is great. And this is actually fine at this point to be thinking in this way. What we need to do is populate that with content. And this is the tricky part, is if the content, all this text and all these images that we're going to put into this website design, if we shape this content to just fill these components, to just render that page layout at this point in time, this is where things are going to get a bit tricky, but we'll push on. We'll get our data. We'll put it into our components as props. We'll make our website design here, and then we'll take this data. We need an editable interface for this. So you go to Sanity.io and you sign up for a new free plan with an incredibly generous tier of bandwidth usage and features. So now we've got this content editable experience. And we hand this off to the authors. There you go, you've got your website, just like we designed it. We've coded it, works on mobile, works on tablet, it's fantastic, it's accessible, it looks great, loads quickly. Here's your editable experience. You want to change the title, you want to change images, you want to do anything, go ahead and do that. I'm going to chance my hand again. What happens next? We've deployed this website, it's finished, we've handed it off to the customer. What happens next? Anyone? What happens next? Yes. Customer asks for a change. Well, actually, I know we agreed on the design. I know we signed that off, but it's not really working for us. Actually, I want to put the distance of the event up here above the fold, and actually put that subtitle on the image, and maybe move the date up above the fold as well, because that makes more sense there. And so now we're thinking, great. That's not what we built, but hey, because we've got these reusable components, so we can just shift these things around, right? So we'll just we'll rewrite the subtitle down into the banner's caption, and we'll just move the this caption up here into the hero spot, and we'll just move this text up here as well. We can sort of join that together, and that works. But now our code is a real mess. Like it was okay before, but now it's even messier, and actually nothing really lines up anymore because we were considering the design more than the content itself. So now if the user wants to edit, the title's in the same spot, but if we want to edit the subtitle, it's actually being displayed in the banner image. So this is kind of annoying and difficult. Now if we want to edit the distance, we've actually got to change where the subtitle is, and making edits now is really complicated and annoying because we've lost touch. We created a front end and we gave it an editing experience that was really only tied to the back end at that point in time. And so here was our data that we started with, and we modeled it all based on that presentation, and that was the problem. And the problem's actually not the pink bit here, the content itself. The problem's the shape of that data here. The problem was that when we were thinking about our content, we weren't thinking about content model, we were thinking about content as a means to fill a design, again, at a point in time. The fix here was to actually do the content modeling first, do the boring part essentially. Think about what are we actually showing here? We're showing an event, and it's not a web page, it's not an application, it is an event. It has a title, a subtitle, a distance. It has these things. And so you can see here we're not modeling captions and hero titles and all this sort of thing. This might make a lot of sense if you're in the back-end side of things, databases and all that. Of course, this is how you would typically have started, but we just know from a lot of experience, a lot of front-end motivated teams are much more concerned with what it looks like and making editable content experiences primarily. So let's go and correct those mistakes. Now our content editor looks like this. We're not editing a web page with a web page template. We're editing an event. And now we can reuse this event data. Again, in a PDF, in some other API that consumes events. We can make sure that our schema markup's flawless for SEO and all of this sort of thing. We're modeling content for what it is, and it still does the same thing. We can still take that exact same data and put it into these components and produce that website design. And it removes the confusion of, if we want to move some of these things around, that doesn't matter because I'm not worrying about editing the image caption. I'm actually worried about editing some content that goes with the event. So this is sort of that change in thinking that the idea of this talk is to try and help persuade you to get towards. So, actually, this is the big summary. This is it. If I can leave you with nothing else. Let's consider just one piece of text that we had there before, the hero title. And this seems like a laboured analogy, but the word hero, I hear it so much that until it gets worn out. Some web pages I'm convinced are just nothing but heroes. So the difference between a hero title and an event title. If we're thinking about heroes, that's presentation as data. We are creating what does this look like right now. And if we were to query, if we left the conference today with a newfound desire to become developers and we start learning about making queries to APIs and all this sort of thing, we query the hero title, we don't even know what it is. What is the hero title? That could be the title of a promotion, could be the title of an event, could be the title of a person. We don't actually know what it is. All we know is that it's probably the most important thing in that bit of data that we got returned. The display's rigid. If the hero title isn't the biggest, most important thing on the page, then what are we doing? Now we've completely lost touch with what we actually have. So the meaning's implied, but we don't truly know what this thing is. So again, this is modeling content. It's modeling presentation as data instead of content as data. So if we're doing a query and we get the event title back, This is content as data. This has been Sanity's catch cry since the very beginning. So the presentation's unbounded. We don't have to make the event title the biggest thing on the page, because maybe it's just in a list in the sidebar. Maybe it's it's just in the footer. Maybe it's in a newsletter. Maybe it's literally anywhere. It doesn't matter. We can place it wherever we like, and we still know what it's going to be. The display is really super flexible in that way, and the meaning is explicit. We know if we query data and we only get back the event title, we know it is the title of an event and nothing else. So this removes any confusion, and it powers that reuse story wonderfully. So let's summarize with a few points here. Number one, consider what it is, not what it looks like. We can get away from the design stage, fun as it is, or at least spend some time together. And certainly this is an exercise for designers, developers, and absolutely 100% everybody else in that should be brought into that conversation before the first pixel's put on screen, before the first line of code is being written. Get everybody who interfaces with the content of your business together in a room and say, what is the content model of what we're selling? We're modeling the business's concerns. We're not modeling the website today by this new redesign that we're getting done, which is fantastic. What is it? What is it that we sell? What are the individual pieces? If we're selling products, what are the materials they're made of? Who are the people that make them? Where are those materials sourced from? What are the relationships between different pieces of content? I haven't used the word structured content in this particular presentation, but there's all sorts of literature on that topic on our website. But this is a really important thing. We speak to a lot of our customers who would tell us, or we'd say, what's something you wish you did at the start of the project? And they'll say, we wish we had more conversations with the people who are actually going to use the platform, because then we'd know what they actually had wanted, instead of picking the fonts and the colors and then hoping it worked after the fact. So that's lesson one. What is it? What is it that we're doing? What do you sell as a business? Think about that first. Number two, treat the website as just one outlet for your content. This is the dream that Omnichannel has been selling us forever, but I guess really make it happen. It's very easy, again, to race to that one outlet, but the website's just a shell for you to put your business's content into. Number three, content-driven designs are longer lasting than curated. When we're explicitly curating, we have to keep building new components. We have to keep shifting things around. I've long wondered, because I have this conversation so often, is there literally somebody at Amazon.com who's dragging blocks into place, to power the homepage? It's extremely unlikely that that's happening. It's all algorithmically generated. It's all rules and preferences and priorities. That's what's going to the very top of the page, and that will just last longer. You won't get tired of that because you're not the one interfacing with that design all of the time to make that happen. Make early planning about content over components. Again, that is, start having that conversation before the redesign process begins. This could be something that happens even in lieu of a redesign. You don't have to wait for that design process to begin. You could have that conversation today about, can we accurately model all of the content that this business is actually concerned about? That's number five. Non-developers understand content, not components. And I guess that's for the majority of the room here today. And hopefully that the talk today has done a good job of separating that. It's just not to get locked into the individual bits and pieces that make up the website, little rectangles and little boxes that power the website, but rather the content that is going to populate those. And essentially too, what more storytelling can you empower off of that as well? When you can map out the relationships of all of the individual pieces of content, again, like a product has a maker, has a material which came from a destination, which has specific attributes. When we see all those individual pieces of content alone and see the relationships between them, it unlocks new opportunities to tell stories about those things, like show me all of the products that are made by this creator, show me all the products that contain this material. When we're thinking about content entities and their relationships, instead of just what is this going to look like on our website. I've got a blog post about this if you'd like to read more or follow up. It's most of what I've talked about today, but perhaps might be interesting to share with anybody else who isn't here today, but that is me done. Thank you.